Hello, and we are back with our Batman the Animated Series episodes commentary. And today's episode is one that is really interesting because it features the first appearance of a great Batman villain, Bane. So, as usual, let's do our countdown so we can watch the episode together if you have your DVD box set, or Blu ray box set, or streaming service with Batman the Animated Series. Let's go in 3, 2, 1. Give it a play. So the first Warner Bros. Logo is on the screen. We will have now the opening of the adventures of Batman and Robin. And yes, Bane, right? This is the first appearance of Bane in this show. And apparently, the Bane character became more popular in the 90s, exactly at the time that this show was being broadcast. So there was a demand for the creators of Batman the Animated Series to feature the character in one of the episodes, or at least in the show. And we have the first big appearance of Bane in the comics is in the Nightfall comic saga. A comic saga that is very unbalanced in terms of quality, but I have a great nostalgia for it when I was a kid, especially because I had the comic book, the Nightfall, right? Which was the Bane destroying Batman and breaking his back uh, by releasing all the criminals, the inmates in Arkham Asylum, and leaving the Batman very tired after catching all of them. And in the end, the Bat is so tired that Bane just, destroys him pretty easily, breaks him completely. Uh, and which I always thought it was very coward of Bane to face Batman, not in his prime, but to make him exhausted first. But anyway, and after that we had the Knight's Quest, which is the substitute of Batman after his back was broken. That was John Paul Valley, originally the Azrael, taking the mantle of the Bat and becoming a new Batman that got revenge on Bane, and he became that very technological armored Batman, almost like a Azrael version of Batman. And then eventually we had the Knight's Return, I think. I don't remember now the name. The end of the saga, Knight's End, I think. Yes, Knight's End, which we have Bruce Wayne returning and taking the mantle back from Jumpo Valley. But anyway, Bane became very popular in that moment, including there was a demand to put him in the cartoons, the TV shows, the movies, even in Batman and Robin. So he became a very popular character, and here he is now in this episode making his first appearance. But apparently the creators didn't like Bane that much. They didn't think he was a very interesting character. So I think the Bane version that we have in this episode is very nerfed for what he's supposed to be, right? It's a very interesting and very dangerous villain for Batman. In here, we see him more like this gun for hire for the criminal Rupert Thorne, which is exactly what's going on in the beginning of the episode here. We see Rupert Thorne. He hired Bane, this international contract killer, to come to Gotham and break the Batman, right? So it's a very interesting beginning of the episode. We see Bane coming out of an airplane, and you can see that his figure is huge. He's a very tall, strong guy, and he also has hidden assets that we're gonna see in the future. And yes, we see that Rupert Thorne hires him, and this is basically his story in this episode. He's gonna be this contract killer hired for our job. And then we see Killer Croc breaking into a warehouse, which is very interesting because we always see Killer Croc as the monster in this show, and now we see him in the being the leader of a gang, breaking into a warehouse and stealing some things with these other goons, and this is a very interesting facet of the character. He can be a gangster sometimes as well. So Batman and Robin arrive in the warehouse and they start to fight the goons. So this is an episode featuring both of them, right? Batman and Robin. That's why we got that opening in the beginning. Batman tosses a bomb of light on Croc, and Croc runs away from the warehouse, and a chase starts between all these characters. Croc tosses a huge metal grid on both of them, and this is where we're gonna see Croc escaping into the sewers of Gotham, and in these sewers we're gonna have him waiting for Batman in his own environment for a fight, but who eventually ends up appearing is Bane. He breaks a wall the behind Killer Croc, and they both are going to fight in the sewer. And this is where we see Bane using his venom to become huge as usual, right? Become this huge monster. And this is an element of Bane that I always think is so over the top, because it's obvious that when he uses venom, he becomes stronger than anybody else. So I never see Bane as a real physical match for Batman or any other opponent, because he, he is cheating, right? By becoming this huge, big monster. Uh, so, I think when we see uh, the Tom Hardy version in Batman, I mean, in Dark Knight Rises, and then we see that he's just a guy, right, that wears a mask and is really huge, and the mask prevents him from having pain. I really like that version because that is a equal match to Batman in terms of physicality. It's not this huge monster that will break any opponent by becoming so huge. So that's why I think the appeal of Bane for me comes more from his background and his being this guy who is a physical challenge for Batman, but by using the venom he becomes a little less attractive for me in those terms. Anyway, we just saw that Bane, he left a message for Batman by crumpling the Batmobile entirely, which is a very good scene, and we see Batman and Robin coming out of the sewer, and when he comes across the Batmobile, he gets shocked by seeing that the whole destruction was done by hands, right? Somebody actually crumpled the car with their bare hands. And then Batman comes to visit Killer Croc in Arkham Asylum. The Croc is completely broken and all patched up in a bed, and he kind of tortures Killer Croc to get the information of who has done this. And it was, Croc tells him that it was this guy, huge guy with a South American accent, which is exactly the background of uh, of Bane. And then we see, first of all, Batman leaves the asylum by saying later Gator, which I always think is funny. But then we see Batman getting some old footage to watching the Batcave about Bane's past, and we see that he is a volunteer and a test subject of a project called Gilgamesh, which is a project to create super soldiers, right? And we see in this very cool little brief camera footage that Bane he starts to toss the scientists around in the project, in the lab that he was being tested. So yes, Batman realizes that he has a pretty big challenge ahead. And then we see a little more of Bane with Thorne's secretary, the one that already showed up in many episodes of this show. She's this very, beachy uh, secretary that loves to see fights and loves to see, men in confrontation. And she appeared in the Two-Face two-parter episode in the beginning of the show. And here we see her again, and she's having an affair with Bane, apparently. Then we get Robin is spying on her. And yes, Bane is gonna show up and get Robin. And Robin tries to fight Bane, but he's no match in any way to the villain. And Robin tries to put on a fight because even though he's no match in terms of strength, at least he's agile, right? But still, he's no match for Bane. And let me talk a little more about his appearance in the Nightfall's comic. Like I said, he became very prevalent in the comics during the 90s. And almost like Venom for Spider-Man, he's a character from the 90s that all of a sudden became very popular and part of the main roster of villains for each character, right? Venom became a very popular and one of the main bad guys from Spider-Man after his appearance in the comics. Even though there were the Green Goblin or Doctor Octopus as the classic villains from the 60s, right? And the popularity of Venom was so great that he became one of the main ones for this character. And here is the same with Batman. Bane, even though he's a villain that came very much later in the history of the character, he became very popular. And that was because of the whole, the Nightfall comic. And the fact that he was the only character that was able to physically, defeat Batman for the first time. It's almost like, Doomsday was for Superman. He was the only character. Again, in the 90s, we used to have these big sagas, these very striking stories of these characters in the 90s. Doomsday was the only villain who was able to kill Superman. So there was the great saga, the death and return of Superman. And here is the same with Batman. The whole Bane breaking Batman was an event in the comics, right? So much so that it was already translated into movies in The Dark Knight Rises. Basically, The Dark Knight Rises is a version of Nightfall, with Batman being out of the picture and Bane taking control of the city until his return even though in the comics, Jumpo Valley was the one who defeated Bane later. Um, so so he became a very popular character because of that. Plus, there was a demand apparently in hearing the animated show for Bane to be, because he was so popular, they wanted to have a feature length movie of Batman the Animated Series with Bane as the villain. And so the movie Sub-Zero that came after this season, which we will comment in the future, Sub-Zero with Mr. Freeze was actually originally supposed to be a Bane feature length, which we would have Batman maybe I don't know, adapting the whole Nightfall saga in a feature length of 90 minutes or 60 minutes, I don't know. But then with the release of Batman and Robin, and for the fact that Mr. Freeze, the Arnold Schwarzenegger version, was being released in 1997, the producers decided to change the the idea and have a feature length with with Mr. Freeze instead, and not Bane. So Bane was directed to one of the episodes of the show, which was here, and apparently for the better, because for the better, I mean for the creators, because they didn't like this character that much. Um, in my case, I think I would like to have seen a feature length adapting the whole Nightfall saga, which apparently there are rumors that they're gonna do it in the future. I saw this news recently. I'm not sure if it is true, but they will. There is a desire to adapt the Nightfall saga completely in an animation form. Actually, to make it a trilogy of animation movies, and probably adapt Nightfall, Night Quest, and Night's End into animation form. Hopefully, this is true, because I would like to see that. Even though the last animations with DC, there haven't been that good in my opinion. But anyway, so Batman was going to rescue Robin here in this boat, and we have a little fight between Batman and Bane that is very much WWE, with Bane using this his legs to toss the Batman around, very much like any fighter from WWE. So it's a cool little notch to that kind of, or that style of fight. And then this is a very funny moment of the episode. Robin is in this tank of water, and Batman releases him, but he's still on the water, and he calls the secretary of Rupert Thorne to jump in the water and fight with him, which is very funny, because they both fight, and she actually starts to really beat the crap out of him in the water, pulling his hair and doing the whole cat fight with Robin, while Batman fights with Bane outside the tank. And but obviously Robin is able to he starts to drown her to be able to beat her. Meanwhile, with Batman, we have this very cool moment with Bane almost outmatch him, and he says, "Scream my name," and then we're gonna have almost the classic moment of Bane breaking Batman's back by lifting him up on the air. But before he is able to descend back into his knees and breaking his back, Batman is able to diffuse his venom serum in the little device on his hand, and then the venom overflows in his veins and starts to give him an overdose of the liquid. And Batman removes the cable of the Venom, and Venom deflates completely, almost like a balloon. And this is where we see that he is very much nerfed in this episode, because Batman goes to Rupert Thorne's office and tosses Bane, you know, in front of the criminal mob boss, like this very poor, thin guy. And it's so pathetic, a pathetic end to this villain in the episode. Not only that, but he shows a recording of Thorne's secretary talking with Bane. They were actually planning to take Thorne out of the picture and take the business to themselves. And so Batman just leaves the office of Rupert Thorne, leaving that bomb for him to solve. And this is it. This is the episode, Bane. A very cool episode. Maybe should be better, but anyway, it's a fun watch for the first appearance of this character in the show. All right. So if you are liking the commentaries of Batman the Animated Series here in this channel, please don't forget to leave your beloved like and your wonderful subscription, so we can keep talking about Batman and DC Universe forever. All right. See you in the next Bat episode, and bye bye.